the new Pope, Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, an American Pope for the first time, from South Holland, Illinois, locally here in Chicago. People knew him and grew up with him. He went to Villanova University. He has only been a cardinal for a year and a half, appointed in September of 2023 by Pope Francis.
This is extraordinary. Yeah, this is really extraordinary. He was the head of the Augustinian order. He is, as we hear, born in the U.S. I'm from South Holland too, and so this is a pope who knows the American experience. He spent a lot of time in Peru as a missionary and then a bishop in Peru as well. And as I said, also was the leader, the international leader of the Augustinian fathers throughout the world. Just extraordinary.
We are waiting for the new pope to emerge on that balcony. The disbelief you hear in our voices is only because no one expected an American to be selected as pope.
Yeah, I certainly that's the case. And Cardinal Cupich himself said, there's no way it's going to be American. And that was always read because of just sort of how the U.S. is perceived as such a great superpower in the world. But keep in mind that Prevost spent a lot of time in Latin America. So he's deeply shaped and formed by the church in Peru. He speaks Spanish. I presume he speaks Italian. He obviously speaks English, and he's only, I think, 69 years old.
Well, he had that role in the Vatican administration, so he was known to all of the cardinals and was really considered a compromise candidate because he appealed to both those who favored Pope Francis's reforms and, of course, others who really wanted a return to a more traditional church. So we talked about that compromise. Here is our compromise candidate, someone who has worked at the Vatican, but also is American, and that is remarkable in the church first.
It is extraordinary, and it's an American, as I say though, with that global experience, and so it's very much a 21st century cardinal in this 21st century pope in the sense of shaped by the global church. Yes, Western Hemisphere, but not just in one particular corner of the world. And he is not, as you say, a Vatican, spent a lot of time at the Vatican, but is known well among the other cardinals. And I think they probably see in him. And keep in mind, by Pope standards, he's pretty young. 69 years old. We hope is in great health, and that's an exceptional choice.
He also had a connection to Latin America because in elevating him to cardinal, Pope Francis appointed him to the Pontifical Commission for Latin America. And that was one of the things that we talked about in terms of that unification of the church and the areas where the church is growing and wanting to capitalize on that.
And he also, as head of the Augustinian order, so the Augustinians, a religious order founded in the 13th century, I believe, following in St. Augustine's, in the spirit of St. Augustine. He would have had a very global view of the church from that experience. That is, from being the head of the Augustinians, he would have been traveling around the world to visit Augustinians wherever they were in the world, and he would have been following, and he would have known the global, the realities of the differences among the various parts of the world, the church's experiences in those different cultures, such that the questions burning in Africa right now in the Catholic leadership mind is very, very different than, say, in the United States or elsewhere. Someone just texted me as well that he has a degree from CTU, I think. I'm not sure, we'll have to confirm that, but from Catholic Theological Union.
Yeah, he graduated from Villanova in 1977, then received a Master of Divinity from Catholic Theological Union in Chicago.
So right here in Hyde Park, he would have gotten his theological training after, so Villanova is an Augustinian university. It's a Catholic university run by the Augustinians. And so he must have entered the Augustinians shortly thereafter, or maybe while he was in college there, and then did a degree here in Hyde Park.
And according to the New York Times, he has selected the name Pope Leo.
Yeah, Leo the 15th, I think it would be.
14.
Leo the 14th.
14th. Okay.
I mean, this is stunning.
It is stunning.
In this moment in our global politics, to see an American selected as Pope, it's never happened before.
No, no. The paper, there have been more popes than there have been years of the existence of the United States of America. You know, one of the things to play all politics is local. I'm going to guess that Cardinal Cupich is actually quite close to now
Yeah.
Cardinal Prevost as our new pope. I would guess. I would think they would have probably spent a fair amount of time in various places together.
I'm just thinking to the fact that he grew up in South Holland, which is about 40 minutes south of Chicago. South Holland, I grew up 2 towns away, was known as a community of churches. There were praying hands on the water towers in South Holland. They were so proud of the Dutch Christian church influence. In fact,
You can see Cardinal Cupich there. Sorry to interrupt
Yeah.
you, Ben.
Oh, yes, right
And
in
the
front.
cardinals who look very elated.
Yeah.